Hello.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding to our trip. We are traveling with my father, and we've been to Oklahoma on a seminar. And there was a guy speaking about memory. And we've been changing our memories with a specific technique and flipping them on a positive. And I wanted to ask if making a list of these memories, traumas, negative experiences, and then flipping them is helpful.
It can be, but we wouldn't go looking for them. Here's what happens. We have a new analogy that is quite lovely in explaining something like this, because we're talking about you and the law of attraction and the way you present yourself. And we've been saying it's as if you've got a bag of marbles that is every thought you've ever thought. The law of attraction is responding to that, but every marble in the bag is not active right now. It's only your active marbles that the law of attraction is responding to, which then equals your rendezvous and the way your life goes. So in this bag of marbles, past traumas are in there, but they're not necessarily active. Now, sometimes life experience will cause them to activate. And when they do, that's the time that you want to leave them in a better feeling place. But we would not go looking for them. We would let them as they come up. This is the way we've been describing something like that. We've been saying you can change your past by your perspective in the present, because your law of attraction is present. So let's say something happened to you when you were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever before. Something happened. And let's say, for sake of this example, it was trauma. It wasn't something that you liked or that you would ever like to live again. But it happened. But even as it happened, as you are able to turn your attention to interest or love or other things, it becomes inactive. So it is not part of what attracts more to you. But most people keep it active because it was traumatic and it was a big story. I got locked in a bookstore. And so as they tell the story and the family tells the story, it becomes a sort of thing that as you keep bringing it forward into your active bag of marbles because of your attention to it, and you don't need to. Humans have a phrase that is flawed from top to bottom, and it goes, if I do not remember the past, I'm sure to repeat it. And the opposite of that is true. Your remembering of the past is what keeps it active, which keeps it in your bag of marbles, which keeps it coming back to you. And so it is beneficial to flip those things, but it is easier just to replace them with more pleasant now things.
One more question. If it's active in your vibration, if it's active, you go, you dig in it, and you change it.
You don't do that. Well, if it's active in your vibration, the law of attraction digs. The law of attraction brings you stuff like it. So then you keep having an emotional response to it. And when you have the emotional response, if your simple question is, how does this feel? You see, when you don't feel good, this is what it means. Your inner being is looking at it differently than you are. That's always what that means. So you say, well, this doesn't feel good. How is my inner being seeing that? Would be a very good question to ask. In the early days, we had a process, whole cassette tape, that's how long ago it was, called pivoting and positive aspects. And pivoting meant, I know what I don't want, what is it I do want? Well, it's logical, it makes sense, and if it's not a big deal, then you can make that pivot. But often when you know what you don't want and you talk about what you don't want, you activate what you don't want, and the law of attraction brings you more of what you don't want. And so it's sort of risky business trying to flip that into something better. It is much easier to establish your point of attraction as something that you want, and then things that you don't want just don't keep coming to you. But people would argue, well, I need to go to a therapist and I need them to get to the bottom of that, and I need to dig until I can turn it around. That's why therapy lasts for lifetimes. People don't get it turned around. They just keep it active, and then they just keep trying to find another way of soothing it, another way of soothing it. And if you could just focus on something in your now that feels better and let that be your point of attention, then that comes to you.
So why it works for so many people? If they come with a problem, they have some kind of disease, and then they go in their past, they go and change every single negative experience that is connected to it.
We've never known anyone could do that. If they can, that's a magnificent process, and everyone should know about it. But we know the laws of the universe, and we know that attention to them activates them and keeps them going longer. It is just the way that it is. What may be happening there is that in knowing what I don't want, I know what I do want, so I launch a stronger rocket. And in knowing what I don't want, I know what I do want, until eventually the desire for what I do want is so strong that I'm called as one of the cooperative components to what I'm wanting. We never put down what anybody else is doing, because it may very well be the perfect process for people that are really not ready to hear this, what they might call fanciful stuff. There are people that this would just feel like crazy talk. There's a vortex, are you kidding me? I have an inner being? And we say, well, your logic lets you know that there's more than you just going on. You're a smart bunch, but you haven't scraped dirt together and launched another Earth into orbit. You know that there's something bigger going on than you can identify here. But it's hard to describe what it is through your physical senses, but you can feel what it is if you get tuned to the feeling of it. There are lots of processes that are helpful. And if you dig into any process, even those that we are offering, if you dig into any process and you find relief from it, then it helped you, because your point of attraction shifted, and in your feeling better, you are attracting better. But even today, with all of the processes that we have offered, this statement that here I stand, me, my physical being, here I stand, and I'm thinking a whole bunch of stuff. I'm thinking about that and that and that and that and that. And some of the stuff I think about feels really, really good when I think about it. Some of it is boring. Some of it makes my skin crawl. Some of it is really uncomfortable to me. Sometimes Esther will turn the television on and she just can't get it turned off fast enough. It's so unpleasant. How you feel is your relationship with who you are. And who you are is what's calling you. That's what you knew. You said, I'm source, and I'll go and I'll sift and I'll sort and I'll launch rockets of desire. And then the more I ask, the more my inner being will align with what I'm asking for, and my inner being will become what I've asked for, and law of attraction will respond to my inner being, and then all the cooperative components will be gathered, and I will be in the mix, or I will not allow myself to be in the mix. You shouldn't have to defend why things should be good for you. That's what your inner being is trying to say to you. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to rework it. You don't have to find a culprit. You don't have to blame somebody else instead of yourself. That's mostly what goes on there. It's not your fault. It was their fault. Well, that's not much more helpful.